2023 could potentially be one of the biggest years in video gaming history, and I am more than ready for it. 2022 is coming to a close, and it was a decent year, but I felt it was a little bit on the boring side. We pretty much knew everything that was happening this year. There wasn't many surprise announcements, surprise reveals, or anything like that. It was pretty much business as usual, with each company being in an interesting position that was completely different from the other company. Nintendo is still riding the highs of the success of the Nintendo Switch. The Sony is now enjoying their success with more PlayStation 5s being available in the marketplace, and Xbox had another gotta wait one more year approach with their system. But 2023 is going to be, once again, a completely different year for all three of these companies. They're all going to be doing different things, and I think that's what makes it so exciting. So in today's video, I want to talk about each company going into 2023 and what to expect from them, and talk about, what I would like to see and what I think has the potential for happening. We're going to start things off with a company that I don't talk a lot about on this channel, and people always complain about it, but that is Xbox. The reason I don't talk about Xbox is I don't care about their game lineup in 2022. Scorn, Pentiment, Grounded. These games are of no interest to me. I played some Scorn, I didn't like it. I played Grounded 2 years ago when it was in its beta stage or whatever. That was enough for me. Pentiment, no, not interested. Not my type of game. If you enjoy it though, that's fine. But Xbox is finally coming into the position where they've been saying this all along. We just need a little bit more time. We need a little bit more time, and then you're going to get the games. 2023 is make or break for Xbox, in my opinion, when it comes to finally releasing games and instilling trust in their consumer base, because we've heard this so many times. So many games were supposed to come out, ended up getting delayed another year, ended up getting delayed another 2 years, and I get it, the pandemic did mess some things up, but you have to steer this ship back on track at some point in time. When it comes to what Xbox is going to do in 2023, there's 3 big games that we already know about that I think everyone definitely has their eye on. The first game is the game that I probably have the least interest in, and that is Redfall. Redfall seems like an okay game, but the problem for Redfall with me is it just seems like another sort of Game Pass game. A game that I wouldn't necessarily be interested in, but I would probably check it out since it's coming to Game Pass, but I don't think it's something that I would put money into. That's kind of a discussion that a lot of people have when it comes to Game Pass, is Game Pass fodder. A game like Pentiment, the Obsidian people went on to say that without something like Game Pass, Pentiment wouldn't happen. And I feel like Pentiment wouldn't happen because nobody would have bought the game. Is Redfall going to be a game like that? It, of course, has the whole team up with your friends, online, PvE stuff in the game. I don't know, man. I feel very mixed about this game, but obviously I'm going to check it out because of the benefit of Game Pass, because I am a Game Pass Ultimate member. The other 2 games, though, definitely have my interest a lot more. Let's talk about Starfield. Starfield is arguably one of the biggest titles as far as a name that pops into gamers' minds when you're talking about consoles. But for me, the biggest game is Forza Motorsports 8. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this game because I love what they've been saying about it. Now, Forza Motorsport 8 is obviously, in the Forza Motorsport series, is kind of the answer to Gran Turismo, whereas the Forza Horizon games are definitely more sort of action-based. They're more arcadey, whereas the Motorsports games are more based on simulations, and they're saying that this is going to be an excellent simulation experience. After the debacle of Gran Turismo 7, after the fact that the online racing in that game, the penalty system, is still so completely broken, I honestly feel that Forza Motorsport 8 can come along and potentially steal a lot of Gran Turismo fanboys from their PlayStation to pick up an Xbox. Like, I feel like this could be a game that does something like that, especially considering you could just get Game Pass when you pick up your Xbox and play Forza Motorsport 8. I actually just got a wheel in from Thrustmaster that we'll be checking out at some point in time because I am the Thrustmaster. I'm also 12 years old with my jokes, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Xbox's year. Those 3 games are definitely big titles. They have other games, Avowed, Perfect Dark, Fable. I'm sure we'll start to see more of those games. I don't expect any of those to come out, but it's definitely a much stronger year already with just what we know about from Xbox, and I think that whole Game Pass thing has to be in the back of your mind as something that, well, maybe they'll sign some more third-party deals to get games available on day one for the platform. It's a very exciting year for Xbox, but I definitely feel it is a make or break year, at least from the consumer standpoint. You could give me all the business numbers, and this is how much Game Pass is making, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'm a consumer. I'm worried about the video games. I want to justify owning my Xbox Series X with exclusive titles because I like playing my third-party games on my Xbox. I prefer the Xbox controller over the PlayStation controller. Sue me. I don't care. I have kind of tiny hands. But when it comes to the first-party titles, it's been extremely lacking. So Xbox kind of make or break, for my opinion, as far as, you know, promising me stuff and then actually delivering me that stuff. Next up, we're going to talk about Sony with the PlayStation brand. Now, Sony, I think, is in a more unique position than Xbox is because there's a lot more mystery when it comes to Sony. When you look at 2022, we got pretty much what we expected to get. Games like Horizon, games like Gran Turismo 7, which complete disappointment, and of course, God of War Ragnarok. But sort of beyond that, we don't really know much about what is going to release in 2023. Allegedly, Spider-Man 2 is still scheduled for a 2023 release, and honestly, that's a huge deal in my opinion. I'm going to go out and say something that's pretty crazy right now, but when it comes to Sony's exclusive titles, Spider-Man has probably become my favorite. I like Spider-Man more than any other offering that Sony offers as far as their first-party exclusive games. I feel like Spider-Man and subsequently Spider-Man Miles Morales are just top-tier video games, man. They feel great, they play great, they look great, the stories in them are great. You get so much gameplay time out of them as well. These are like some of my favorite games of recent memory, the Spider-Man games, and Spider-Man 2 has the potential to be absolutely massive. If they play their cards right with this, this could be an absolute home run for Sony. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is, of course, one of the biggest things going right now. Everybody loves Spider-Man again, and I feel like we should have, you know, high expectations for this game. Seeing the quality of Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales definitely leads me to believe that, you know, they're going to have to up the ante a little bit with this game. What are they going to add into Spider-Man 2 that's going to differentiate itself from the original games as far as gameplay is concerned, environments and settings? Because, you know, how many times can we go through this New York City environment and still keep it fresh throughout? I feel like you kind of got to throw in some deviations there in order to keep things fresh, in order to keep things interesting. Of course, you also have the PlayStation VR 2 coming out in 2023. That'll be coming out in early 2023. I still feel like this is going to be an afterthought for Sony. You know, when you look at the lineup of games that are going to be available sort of around the launch window, there's nothing that really captivates me as, oh, I need to get this on day one. Like the Horizon game, I think looks the best as far as games are concerned, but I still feel like there's going to be that problem where, like, if you buy a game that's based on online or something for the PlayStation VR 2, that small user base of the system is going to kind of play a role into that, because I don't see this. You know, of course, you know, pre-orders sold out in the United States because of scalpers, let's be realistic, but in many other places such as Europe and Australia, pre-order sales were much slower on this device. And how many people are actually going to be playing their PlayStation VR 2? So much to the point of where you'll have healthy online communities, and more importantly, where you'll have developers who are willing to put their games or create games specifically for this device. That's the problem I have with this, because you're going to have a low install base because the PlayStation 5's install base isn't all that crazy right now. And now you're telling people that they have to spend another $550+ in order to experience the VR portion. It's a lot for the average person to handle. It's a lot for me to handle. So I can't imagine that Sony can just expect companies to want to put their games on there without actually, you know, giving them assistance. I think Sony's going to have to foot the bill on some of these games, and it looks like they are, at least with this initial batch, but I wonder if they're going to keep it going and they're going to make this a viable platform to where it gets to a point where it's self-sufficient, where they don't necessarily need to invest in companies making games for it. The games just speak for themselves and do well enough for the companies to recoup what they've put into the game and, of course, make some money on top of it. I think there's a lot of mystery with PlayStation, though. Whereas, you know, Xbox had the mystery of, is anything going to come out this year in 2022? PlayStation hasn't really talked all that much about 2023 stuff. We know games like Wolverine are in development, but I don't see that coming out till 2024, 2025. We already got God of War. We already got Horizon. We already got Gran Turismo. We already got Ratchet and Clank. These are major Sony IPs that we've already gotten on our PlayStation 5. So what's next for Sony? Are they going to do things like improve the PlayStation Plus services, which I'm almost at the point where I'm going to cancel. Like, I have the premium tier. They're not giving me any sort of retro games on here to make it justifiable to me. I was expecting PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable games, and the lineup has been absolutely ridiculous and just really lacking in terms of new releases being added to it. But the games, I think, are the most important thing. I think Sony does have some tricks up their sleeve. You got to remember, something like The Last of Us Part 1 remake, that just kind of came out of nowhere. It was announced, and then a couple weeks later, it came out. So I feel like you might see some things like that, but I do wonder what Sony is planning in 2022 as far as new games are concerned. Like I said, I don't see Wolverine coming out, and I think Spider-Man 2 is going to be a huge game, but you obviously want more than just one game to come out in the year. Could we see the return of some classic Sony franchises that haven't been around for a while? I don't know. You know, they kind of go in this new mantra of everything has to be a more narrative, story-driven thing or a free-to-play sort of game. It seems like they kind of just have alleviated games like, you know, Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, games that aren't going to have an epic story. I think Ratchet & Clank does give some hope for those styles of games, though, so it'll be super interesting to see, though. I think the mystery of Sony is leading for a lot of excitement for me, because I think that's going to be a really fun time, you know, seeing what they end up doing and seeing what they bring to gamers in 2022, or 2023, I should say. And finally, saving, obviously, probably what you want to hear for last, I am going to talk about Nintendo in 2023, because something has to give. Something has to give. Let's talk about software. When it comes to exclusive software for the system, we already know about 3 titles. Fire Emblem Engage, which I think looks absolutely fantastic. I think it looks better than Three Houses did. I probably will actually spend more time with this. I played Three Houses for like 12 hours, and just like the houses stuff, the school setting, it's like I graduated from school a long time ago. I don't want to play in another school. The Kirby Wii remake, okay, you know, it's whatever. But arguably the biggest game is something that we've been talking a lot about on this channel, and that is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is going to be a huge game for 2023, arguably the biggest game of 2023. If we take everything that we know for 2023 with games like Starfield, games like potentially Spider-Man 2, and Tears of the Kingdom, I say Tears of the Kingdom is by far the biggest game in terms of that, because of the anticipation, because of the buildup that has been surrounding this game. Why has this game been delayed so many times? What are they adding into this game to make it so unique? How will it perform on the Nintendo Switch if it's utilizing the same Breath of the Wild engine that we just made a video about yesterday, sort of digging into the specs of that and how Breath of the Wild turned out on the Switch, and then of course subsequent patches. You know, there's a lot of mystery with Nintendo right now, because I feel like I can't give Nintendo the benefit of the doubt. 2022 had a lot of sort of lackluster things when it came to Nintendo, in my opinion. Games like Mario Strikers Battle League, an absolute disappointment of a game that's probably never going to have 4-on-4 soccer, which just drives me up the wall. Like, this is a basic thing. Something like, of course, Nintendo Switch Sports, which didn't get golf until like right now, which was originally supposed to be a day one sort of thing. Well, what took so long to implement golf into these games? You know, I feel like most of the Nintendo titles we got in 2022 were just games that you would experience for a week and then you would move on from. There's not that longevity thing. There's not that sort of sense of exploration or that sense of wanting to go back and potentially replay the game. But I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to be that game. I mean, people are still playing Breath of the Wild, putting in hundreds and hundreds of hours and still discovering new things. I hope it's not delayed or anything like that. But on the other side of the coin, we do have to talk about new hardware in 2023. I think Nintendo does something when it comes to new hardware. Does that mean that they release new hardware in 2023? Not necessarily. You know, there's kind of a mindset of people that, going back to Tears of the Kingdom, that they think that Tears of the Kingdom is going to launch alongside of a revision for the Nintendo Switch that gives more power, that really gives the ability for that game to shine. I think that has potential to happen. We have seen that with games like, of course, Hyrule Warriors Legends and Xenoblade Chronicles 3D on the new Nintendo 3DS. That, you know, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D didn't run on the standard 3DS, I don't think. I'm questioning myself. But I know that Hyrule Warriors Legends did run on both systems, but it just ran so much better on the new 3DS. It was like a completely different game. So you're gonna have to have something potentially to go alongside of this to get this optimized experience, because I'm gonna guess that you're having, system restraints when you're developing this game. But I think even beyond that, talking about something, let's say that doesn't happen, I still think you talk about a new system in 2023 and potentially show it off. The Switch will be turning, 6 years old next year, and it's like going into its, 6th and 7th year, you're starting to see, major issues with the system. System sales are starting to have some dips here and there, which people don't seem to think is a big deal. I'm not saying it is a big deal. I'm just saying when you've been on top and had no competition, and now the competition is starting to catch up to you, you got to think about your next move. Of course, from a technical side of things, there's been so many issues with Switch games time and time again, less than HD frame resolutions, huge frame rate issues on major key titles. I definitely think Nintendo understands that, though, because like I said, when you look at 2022's lineup, it definitely felt like a lot of filler, not big substantial titles like you saw in 2017, 2018 from Nintendo. It just felt like a sort of stopgap until we get to whatever Nintendo is going to do next. And I think they talk about that in 2023. Maybe it doesn't release until 2024, which, whatever. At least Nintendo will give their consumer base that's starting to get tired of the limitations of the Switch software something to hold their hat on, something to say, okay, well, you know what, these games might not run, the best that they should, but hopefully they run better on this new system and I could still use them. And I think Nintendo has to talk about that at some point in time. They just have to. You're getting to a point of, the law of diminishing returns. You're starting to reach the maximum capacity of people who want a Nintendo Switch. Why not extend it with a new piece of hardware? As far as what other software Nintendo's doing, who the hell knows? It really just depends on what happens with Tears of the Kingdom, because that's not a big holiday game. That game comes out in May. So what's going to be a big holiday game? What does the second half of the year have? Of course, we'll get some of those answers during a February Nintendo Direct that will more than likely come along, but I feel like I've taken up enough of your time hypothesizing about 2023. I think at the end of the day, 2023 is just a super exciting year for all of these reasons, for the stuff that we know about already. Games like Starfield, potentially Spider-Man 2, games like, of course, Tears of the Kingdom, games that we don't know about that could be potentially coming out, new hardware, new online services. The Xbox and the PlayStation 5 are finally going to be getting into their groove of development and releasing of games, whereas Nintendo is starting to get into the latter part of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle. So you got to wonder if they're going to pivot to something else, if they're just going to release a revised Nintendo Switch, if they're going to go on with a full-on successor that comes out in 2024. Nobody really knows. And I think that's what makes the year so exciting. So let me know in the comment section down below what you are looking forward to as far as 2023 is concerned. The stuff that we know about, the stuff that we don't know about, what you expect to sort of happen in this year. Do you think Xbox finally fulfills its prophecy of having first-party games? What does Sony have up their sleeve? Because they've been very quiet about 2023. And what the hell does Nintendo do in the year? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If this is your first time here, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell notification. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your ex-girlfriend if she's cute. What's up, girl? And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Later.